We have Samara Ramey reading The Crash, which is something she wrote herself. Please welcome Samara Ramey.
My name is Selena. I'm 18 years old. I used to be the cool punk kid, not afraid of anything. Nothing ever really mattered, and all I wanted was to grow up and get through my so-called life. That was before the crash. It was September 25th, 2007. I was getting ready to board a plane headed for cold, wet Seattle to visit my dad that I hadn't seen in almost a month. It was my birthday in 3 days, and I was so excited to see him. Full of anticipation, I wished that the lady at the counter would check the tickets faster. I was tired of standing between these two guys who reeked of sweat. The thick, acidic smell of alcohol still clung to their breath as they joked with each other. Finally, after what seemed hours, it was my turn to get my ticket checked and get on my way to see my dad and get out of Europe. After my parents' divorce, my mom decided she wanted to live in Paris and fulfill the rest of her days making wedding dresses. I preferred living in America. Walking through the long boarding tunnel to the Boeing 737 that awaited my arrival, I could smell the sour, tingling smell of wet metal and nasty old gum that someone had spit on the floor. Stepping onto the plane, I found my seat and sat down, delighted to see that the two men that I was standing in line with were seated far behind me. I was lucky enough to be seated by a man zoned out in a book and an older woman who was busy digging something. Not really interested in making small talk, I sat quietly and waited for the pilot to tell us to buckle up. Before I knew it, we were taking off. Feeling the presence of butterflies in my stomach, we quickly rose far above the earth and headed west for Seattle. I had dozed off not too long after takeoff and was awakened by what seemed to be the deathly monster that they called turbulence, but was actually just the kid behind me keeping my seat. She was quietly crying and sniffling to herself. I could hear the bubbly cracking sound of the snot being sucked back up her nose as she tried to keep it from getting to her mouth. Turning around in my seat and noticing that no one had been seated next to her, I asked her nicely to please stop. She looked up at me, eyes as big and blue as the sea itself, with golden blonde hair that shone like the sun through the plane lights. She sniffled and asked, "Can you take me to the bathroom?" Sighing, I asked, "Where's your mom?" "She's not here. She's sending me to see my daddy in Seattle," she replied. Poor kid. All alone on a plane. She couldn't be more than 7 years old. Getting out of my seat, I said, "Sure, I'll take you. And how about when we get back, I'll sit by you and we can get some snacks." I saw a small smile creep onto her face as she got out of her seat and nodded her head in satisfaction. When we got back to the bathrooms, I wiped off her nose and made sure she washed her hands when she was done. Sitting back down into our seats, I let the older lady that I was sitting by know that I was going to be sitting back next to the little girl behind us. She smiled and told me how sweet I was. I had soon got the attention of a flight attendant and asked her to bring me and my new flight companion 2 Sprites and some candy bars. After she left to get us our goodies, I asked the little girl, "So what's your name, sweetie?" She replied, "My name is Elizabeth." "Well, Elizabeth," I said with a funny tone in my voice, "I don't expect any more crying from you now that we've gone to the bathroom, okay?" She giggled a little, nodded her head, and said, "Nope, no more crying." We had been playing, laughing, and watching movies for a few hours when the soft crackling sound of the pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Please fasten your seatbelts. We are about to experience some turbulence." "What is turbulence?" Elizabeth asked me. While helping her buckle her seatbelt, I replied, "It's when the plane goes through a cloud or when the wind is pushing against the plane and it makes the plane move up and down and side to side." Then, buckling my own seatbelt, she said, "Oh, well, is it scary when the plane moves around?" "Not really," I replied. "It just kind of feels like when you're on a boat and the boat is going over waves." "Oh," she said, "when my daddy takes me on his boat, that's my favorite part." "Good," I said. I was really hoping that it wouldn't scare her. I really didn't want to see her cry again. All of a sudden, the plane lurched upward and then back down again. Elizabeth half screamed, half squeaked at the sudden movement of the plane. My adrenaline spiked with the movement, and I grabbed Elizabeth up in a hug. Stroking her golden blonde hair, I told her that everything was going to be okay. Nonetheless, she started to sniffle. Closing her eyes, she gripped my shirt even tighter as the plane started thrashing from side to side. It was as if the sky had swallowed us up and we were now left to be digested by its treacherous cloud of belly. There was a loud yell coming from the cockpit. It was the pilot screaming, "Mayday, Mayday, this is Alpha 3 to control. Do you read me?" My heart sank in my chest as I hugged Elizabeth even closer to me. At that moment, I knew I was probably never going to see my parents or family again. But that thought was pushed aside as I thought of the little girl that I was holding. Not thinking, I unbuckled my seatbelt and completely wrapped my body around her and dug my fingers into the back of the chair. Holding on for her life more than mine, I looked out the window and saw the dark, unforgiving abyss of earth that I knew we were very soon going to hit. Elizabeth looked up at me and asked if we were going to be okay. In a soft voice, I replied, "Yes, you're going to be okay. And after this stops and the plane lands, you'll get to see your daddy, okay, sweetie?" "Okay," she said. "But I want you to come with me, Selena." Fighting back tears that threatened to fill my eyes, I said, "I'll try my hardest, sweetie, but if I can't come, then you tell him I said hi, okay?" "I will," she said. Then suddenly the plane jerked and I struggled to keep myself in place over her. Everyone on the plane was screaming in fear. Glass shards that would have hit Elizabeth planted themselves deep into my back. Hot stings of pain peppered my senses as I tried not to scream for fear of scaring Elizabeth. Grunting, I looked down at Elizabeth. She had a small cut on her head where a seemingly small shard of glass had passed me and hit her. Fear struck me as I thought of what could happen to her if she didn't wake up. That thought was interrupted as a sharp piece of metal drove itself through my left shoulder, pinning me to the seat above her. A spray of blood splattered the seat in front of me as I screamed. Then everything went black as the plane skidded to a stop. I awoke to the screaming sound of sirens filling my head and the sharp, hot sting of pain in my back and shoulder. The hot, metallic smell of my own blood filled my nose as I took a deep breath, trying to fill my lungs with more air. Blinking, trying to clear my vision, I used my right hand to try and feel Elizabeth beneath me. Fear struck me when all I felt was the slick, oily blood that had dripped from my arm onto the seat below. A paramedic was rushing into the plane when my vision finally cleared again. "Hey!" I screamed. "Help! I can't find the little girl that was underneath me." A look of shock touched his face as he looked at me. "They said you were dead, or more so that you were close to dead." Crying, I said, "I don't care where she is. I don't care what they said. Where is she? Where is Elizabeth?" "Miss, I need you to calm down," he said. "We are going to get you out of here, but I need you to calm down to help stop the blood from flowing out of your body so fast." While I tried to calm myself, the paramedic ran out and was screaming, "I need a team and stretcher in here now, and get me a saw. She's losing way too much blood." I tried to sit as still as possible while they cut a chunk of the seat out from around the piece of metal. Once they were done, they lifted me onto a stretcher and took me out of the plane as fast as they could without hurting me more than I already did. Once again, my world went black as I heard one of the paramedics say that I probably wouldn't make it due to how much blood I had lost. I felt what seemed one small body curl up next to mine. Opening my eyes, I saw my mother sitting in a chair to my right and my father to my left. At the end of the bed, in two other chairs, was a couple that I had never seen before. I didn't really care who they were at the time, and everyone was asleep. Then looking at my side, I saw Elizabeth. She had a small bandage on her head, but other than that, she was fine. Slowly trying to sit up, I let out a small squeal when the pain in my back and shoulder returned to me. At that sound, everyone in my room woke up. Upon seeing me awake, both my parents started crying, and Elizabeth just smiled and hugged me close. I tried to fight back tears as her small hug hurt me in my back in more places than one. My parents tugged me right after Elizabeth did, causing me more discomfort. "Ouch," I said. And at that, they let go. "We were so worried about you, sweetie," my mother said through small sobs. "You've been in a coma for 3 days," my father said. "I thought you would never wake up," said Elizabeth. "Well, I'm okay now, so you don't need to worry, sweetie," I said, scooping her up into a warm hug. It was then that I paid attention to the couple that was at the end of their bed. They both looked at me with such care in their eyes. "Thank you so much for keeping our baby safe," said the woman. "They told us that they think you had put yourself in front of Elizabeth to try and protect her from getting hurt," said the man. "Yes, I did. It was out of instinct, really. She just kept talking about you two, and I couldn't bear the thought of her never seeing you two again." At that, Elizabeth's parents started crying and telling me how much that meant to them. My own parents were crying and telling me how proud they were of me. I was still trying to process everything that had happened 3 days ago. Then the doctor came in, checked me over, and made sure that everything was okay, and told me that I needed to stay in the hospital for another week or so before I could go home. After he left, both my parents and Elizabeth's parents set presents on my lap. "What are these for?" I asked. "Because it's your birthday," said Elizabeth, smiling. The rest of the day was spent just hanging out and getting to know each other. I fell asleep a few times, but they didn't mind. I was also put in the paper and given an award for my bravery, but none of that mattered as much as seeing Elizabeth's smiling face every year after that. That crash changed me more than anything. Instead of not caring about anything, I take every moment that I have and tell my friends and family how much I love them. I'm also not so negative anymore. I look at every day that I wake up to as another blessing. And every time I get to see Elizabeth, I'm reminded just how precious life is and how I need to enjoy the part of my life that I'm in and not just try to rush to the end. So take my experience and learn from it. Learn that every day is a new adventure and that tomorrow really could be your last. So go and tell everyone that you love how much you love them and make sure that you live life to the fullest because you only get one chance.